Hello and welcome to the Affordability Presentation part of Crimson Summit. My name is Rachel Moore and I am the Incoming Freshman Scholarship Coordinator here at OU Scholarship Office. Today, just want to take you through some information, some tips about affordability and financial aid here at OU. So first up are some important dates to keep in mind for your coming freshmen, seniors who are applying to OU. On August 1st, the OU application opens, and then 2 months after that, on October 1st, is when the FAFSA opens. Now, that is for the next year. FAFSA is open for 23-24 academic year, this October 1st, 2022. November 1st is what we call our early action deadline. That's a date that we recommend for students to apply by. And then December 15th would be that final scholarship deadline. Those two deadlines are flexible. You can obviously apply after that, but for students who are looking to get a quick decision on their admission to OU and to submit those essays in their application for scholarship consideration, those are the two deadlines that we want to look out for there. Then all the way into April 30th is the ACT and SAT score submission deadline. If students are trying to submit ACT or SAT scores to potentially maybe get a higher scholarship or to see if they want to switch from being test optional to being a scholarship student with an ACT or SAT score there, we do accept those scores through April 30th. So they don't have to have them finalized, admitted to OU. They can still submit scores once they are admitted. And then finally, May 1st is the enrollment deposit deadline. That is a national date. All schools like to have their students select their college or university by May 1st. So we ask that students who intend to go to OU have their enrollment deposit paid by May 1st as well. So when we talk cost of attendance, what it costs to go to OU, that comprises a few different things. There's something called the direct cost of attendance. Those are these words here in dark. And then transportation, personal miscellaneous expenses, the light expenses are what we call indirect cost of attendance. All things that students do need to consider when they are attending OU, but direct cost of attendance, things like tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies are things that are going to be charged to a student's bursar account, direct costs that they will pay to attend OU. And then that transportation, personal miscellaneous expenses, things they'll definitely have to budget for, think about planning for financially, but not necessarily going to be reflected on their bill. So add in the direct cost and the indirect cost of attendance together. That is the total cost of attendance for a student to attend OU. So expected family contribution basically is what it sounds like. It estimates what a family is going to be able to contribute toward that cost of attendance. This is based on tax information submitted on the FAFSA, determined by the federal government. So OU does not calculate this by hand, but basically says based on family circumstances, parent contribution, maybe students are working, so their contribution as well. Here's what we can expect the family can contribute to the cost of attendance at school. And how we determine financial need is basically a simple addition of those things. Cost of attendance minus expected family contribution as determined on the FAFSA equals what we estimate a student's financial need is, sort of the gap that they might have left to cover. That's not always accurate. We know that students maybe not necessarily can always pay what the expected family contribution is, but that is how we strictly determine financial need here at OU. So here's some average direct cost estimates. Again, those direct costs are things like tuition and fees, housing and food, and books and supplies for both Oklahoma resident students and non-resident students, taking 15 hours a semester or 30 hours over the academic year, which is what students are recommended to take. So for Oklahoma residents, you see here, tuition is really the only difference. Tuition for Oklahoma residents is about $13,400 for this year. Non-residents are estimated at about $29,968. Housing and food and books are estimated the same for both kinds of students. Average estimated direct cost for Oklahoma resident, $26,400. Non-resident, just a little under, $43,000, $42,968. Tuition and fees are billed separately. We do list them as one number just for clarity, for averaging 15 hours a semester. Course fees can differ depending on the kinds of classes a student takes in a specific college, or if they take 12 hours, might be a little bit less. But this is a good average estimate for the direct cost for both Oklahoma students and non-Oklahoma students. So what is the FAFSA? Sure, you know this already. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. As we mentioned earlier, it opens October 1st, 2022 for the 23-24 school year, opens October 1st every year for the year that is upcoming at FAFSA.gov. And that does determine more than just federal aid, what you might qualify for in student loans or grants. Determines, again, that EFC as well. And there's the information there again about parent contribution and student contribution based on some income and tax information on the FAFSA is what determines that EFC, that expected family contribution. So here's a few helpful hints for the FAFSA. It must be completed every year. This can sometimes be tricky for students who maybe fill it out as an incoming freshman, think they're good to go, but that really is just the FAFSA for the first year. It has to be filled out every year in order for us to have the most accurate information for that year. Both students and parents do create and need an FSA ID when they are creating their FAFSA for the first time. And that's the same login information that they're going to use second, third, fourth, maybe fifth or sixth years when they're here as well. Priority filing deadline is the same as that priority scholarship deadline that was mentioned earlier, December 15th. And that just makes sure that all the information is on file when OU is considering students for aid, when they're looking at maybe what their financial need is. And it means that if there's any information that is needed from the student in addition to the FAFSA verification documents, that there's plenty of time to get those things submitted before they start at OU as well. One key trick I think is important too is that last bullet point, is that students of undocumented parents can fill out the FAFSA. So even though those parents may not have a social security number, they can still fill out the FAFSA. They're just going to use all zeros in place of that social security number. So now we get to move on to the fun part, talking about money. Types of aid being ways that students can pay for attendance at school. So we're going to talk about three categories: free money, earned money, and borrowed money. Free money is our favorite type of money, right? Scholarships and grants, things that don't have to be repaid after you leave school. Typically, scholarships are based on merit, and then grants are based on financial need. So when you're talking merit, GPA, test scores, things like that. Grants being that financial need number, that cost of attendance minus EFC number. Again, neither grants nor scholarships have to be repaid. So we really like this. Students really like this because that means that they don't have to owe anything necessarily after they leave school. And this is the best way to fill those financial gaps. Some ways to look for outside scholarships, those outside of OU, are listed here. These are the ones that we recommend students do look at. Obviously, you will see a high school counselor there, of course. So if there's maybe some local scholarships specific to schools that you guys know of, definitely a good thing to share with these students. But there's all sorts of other places to look for outside scholarships too. Churches, civic organizations like the Lions Club, tribal assistance through a student's tribe if they are registered with the Native American tribe. Possibly looking at doing Raise Me, some online scholarship searches, and then students can talk to their admissions counselor as well, maybe to see if there's any resources that they know of. So a lot of places to look. The burden is sort of on the student to kind of navigate these waters, but these are some places that we would definitely recommend as starting places for looking for outside scholarships. And then we have institutional scholarships that OU offers to incoming students, essentially based on a few different things. So again, that deadline that we recommend for priority consideration for scholarships is December 15th. And these typically are going to look at those supplemental essays for consideration. So when a student fills out an application to OU, they have the option to submit essays, leadership essays, academic essays, community involvement essays. It doesn't have to be completed, but we do recommend students who want to be considered for scholarships do complete those by December 15th. The incoming freshman scholarships that are available to students are based again on academic merit, so test scores and GPA. OU still is test optional for fall 2023. So students don't have to submit an ACT or SAT score to be admitted to OU, but potentially could get them a larger award than a test optional award. There are also scholarships for leadership, development, and community involvement. And then some of our academic majors have scholarships within the colleges as well, things like engineering, journalism, architecture for their incoming students as well. The deadlines are a little bit different for transfer students if students are transferring from another institution to OU. Transfer admissions applications, we ask them to apply by March 1st for the fall-summer term before they start, and then the November 1st deadline before the spring that they start, if they're starting in the spring. There are a few different scholarships here as well. Students who are transfer students are offered academic merit-based awards based on their transfer GPA from their previous institution, and they must have completed at least 24 college credit hours after high school to be considered a transfer student here and be eligible for those transfer awards. Now, once you are here at OU, there are a few more opportunities for scholarships. For incoming freshmen, it is essentially just based on your application and the supplemental essays coming in. But once you're a student at OU, all current students are available to apply for what we call CASH, or the Centralized Academic Scholarship Hub. Those applications might be some financial aid-based applications, applications specific to their college or department. All of our applications are held in one central place, so a student just has to log into this between October 1st and February 1st, fill out their information, fill in all the applications that they're eligible for, and submit their eligible applications that way. Application, again, is open between October 1st and February 1st. This is not available to incoming freshmen. It is only available once they are a current student at OU. Oklahoma's Promise is something that a lot of you may be familiar with. This is a state program. It's a program funded and administered by the state of Oklahoma to pay the cost of tuition for students who qualify for this program. They must have enrolled, I believe it is now 8th through 11th grade to apply and be eligible for this program. But it can pay the cost of tuition for up to 5 consecutive years or 129 post-high school credits, whichever comes first, looking for a bachelor's degree, a first bachelor's degree. Students have to meet regular admission requirements, which means they have to be admitted to OU. But if they have Oklahoma's Promise and are admitted to OU, they can utilize that here. And the kind of cool thing about OU is that we have a sort of supplemental program to Oklahoma's Promise students. So students who do apply and are admitted to OU and have Oklahoma's Promise may be eligible for Crimson Commitment. They are checked every year to make sure they are maintaining eligibility. So once a student is admitted to OU, they have to verify their income every year, essentially by filling out the FAFSA every year, which we ask that they do anyway. If a student's parents' income ever exceeds $100,000 per year, they do become, unfortunately, ineligible for Oklahoma's Promise, but they can receive it again maybe the next year if income does go back down. And I'd mentioned Crimson Commitment on the last slide, and this is kind of some more information about what Crimson Commitment is. Essentially, it's OU's partnership program for Oklahoma's Promise, a gap-filling support system that ensures that if Oklahoma's Promise is paying a student's tuition for up to 5 years, for 4 years, the University of Oklahoma will cover the estimated cost of a student's fees. We estimate that's about $8,300 a year. This basically means that a student can receive, they definitely will receive at least $8,300 in additional aid. So this might be through Pell, OTAG, SEOG grants, maybe some tribal grants. OU scholarships and tuition waivers do count toward this as well, potentially outside scholarships as well. If through those things, grants, scholarships, tuition waivers, a student does not have at least $8,300 in outside aid, then OU is going to make sure that they do through supplemental awards. But every Oklahoma's Promise student who qualifies, receives Oklahoma's Promise as an incoming freshman, and does attend OU is eligible to have that $8,300 of fees offset as well. And then we have grants mentioned a little bit before, but there's basically 3 kinds of grants that students receive at OU. These are all government grants, either federal or state. The federal grants being the Pell Grant, and then the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. You might see it called the SEOG or the FSEOG as well. These are all based on unmet need. So looking at that financial need, cost of attendance minus parents' contribution. And then the OTAG grant, or the Oklahoma Tuition Aid Grant, also based on unmet need, financial need, is a state grant that students might potentially qualify for as well. So after borrowed money, after free money, we have what we call earned money, money that students are earning and be able to pay for OU through their jobs. Some students may qualify through federal work study. This is need-based, determined by the FAFSA, and then again, that estimated family contribution. But students who qualify for work study jobs can work at jobs on campus and have part of their wages paid through work study, part of them paid through OU. All work study eligible jobs are found at admissions.ou.edu. A student does not need to be federal work study eligible in order to work at OU. They can also search on jobs.ou.edu for non-work study jobs as well. So any student can look and apply for jobs on campus. Some of them just might be FWS need, and that would be jobs that FWS students can apply for solely, but all students can look for job postings at jobs.ou.edu. And then we come to borrowed money. We recommend definitely students look at free money and earned money before looking at borrowed money, their loans. But loans aren't necessarily always a bad thing. Here at OU, we do consider that if a student really does need to take out loans, it could be viewed as an investment in their future, right? Investing in that bachelor's degree that potentially can bring them into a great career, good earning potential. Loans, of course, must be repaid, and there is interest that does accrue on loans as they are in school. It's a little bit different versus federal loans and private loans. So there are some different terms, different interest rates, different stipulations between those. Federal loans tend to have the lowest fixed interest rates, the most flexible repayment options, and benefits that you really won't find elsewhere. So if students do need to look at loans as an option to pay for school, OU always recommends looking at those federal loans first before maybe looking at institutional or private loans. Here's a brief summary of those two loans, direct subsidized and direct unsubsidized loans. Both are for undergraduate students. However, the direct subsidized loan does not have interest accruing on it while the student is in school or during periods of deferment. So this is for a typical year when there isn't really a loan interest deferment program in place, as we know that there is now. But always the subsidized loan will not accrue interest on it. Unsubsidized loan is going to have interest accruing on it, but still does not require repayment while the student is in school. And all of these are going to be come due after the student has left school. There's also another federal loan called the Federal Direct Plus Loan or the Federal Parent Plus Loan. Same thing. This is a loan that the students can borrow from the federal government. The students' parents can borrow from the federal government in their student's name. So all of these loans are for parents only, determined by credit worthiness. We're not told exactly what that means, but basically means that a parent needs to have a good credit score to be able to be approved for this. And parents can borrow up to the full cost of education with these loans. So that's an important difference from the federal direct loans that were on the previous slide, the loans in the student's name. Each student, undergraduate student, is limited to a certain amount of loan based on their year in school, between $5,500 and $7,500 for the year. Parents with the Parent Plus loan can fill in the gap with that. Here's a couple other loan types that students might need to look into. Private loans are typically offered by private banks, credit unions, things like that. Discover, Sallie Mae, College Avenue are some of the common ones. OU does have loan programs that we administer as well. They are limited in funds, but students can borrow a certain amount of loan from OU as well. So what to expect? When a student applies to OU, is going through all this process, has a FAFSA on file, what kind of comes next? Well, obviously we do ask them to complete the FAFSA first, sign it with their FSA ID, and then list OU as the school code on that FAFSA so we can receive the information. OU school code is on our website as well, but you'll see it here. It is that 003184. Once the FAFSA is sent over to the school, FAFSA is processed by the Student Financial Center, and then the student receives an email report, an email with the SAR report from FAFSA. Then OU receives the information from that FAFSA as well. The SAR report just says that the FAFSA has been sent to the school. OU is then looking at that information on the back end. If there are any missing documents that a student needs to complete, verification of income or some tax documents, for example, OU will communicate with the student via the Student Financial Center about what is missing, what needs to be submitted. Then the student can visit their 1.ou.edu portal under the Financial Aid tab to see what documents those are. Once all of that's done, OU does assemble the financial aid offer, loans, grants if a student qualifies for it, scholarships if student qualifies for those, and then sends that offer to all admitted students. And we have an example of what those letters look like here. So this is a resident financial aid notification letter, often called the OU FAN. This is what a student will receive in the mail once all of their aid is processed and packaged, FAFSA's on file, they're ready to go. So zooming into that letter a little bit, what the letter does list is the estimated cost of attendance. You'll see direct cost at the top, indirect cost at the bottom, and then the total cost, direct and indirect. Again, direct costs are the ones that are typically billed to a student's bursar bill, tuition, fees, books and supplies, and housing and food. Indirect costs are additional expenses possibly needed outside of OU, personal and miscellaneous expenses, transportation, and then loan fees if a student is borrowing loans. Then every student going down the letter will have their own information on there. So this student that we're looking at here, this resident student, did qualify for both a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan through the government for a total self-help aid of $5,500. We can see on here they also have a Distinguished Scholar RTW, resident tuition waiver. They have a Pell Grant, an SEOG grant, and an OTAG grant as well. Total gift aid that does not need to be repaid, is $11,845 for a total of $17,345. And then we'll do the math for them, which is actually kind of cool. Total cost of attendance, both direct and indirect costs, minus total aid eligibility, what the student earned above in aid and loans, and then what the difference to cover out of pocket would be. We also do that for direct cost of attendance, which is a lot of what our money coaches will talk to students about, estimating the direct cost minus the aid they have coming in. So we do that here for them as well. And that's the direct cost minus aid eligibility and the difference. Very similar example for a non-resident student here. Won't spend too much time on this, but same thing as tuition and books, fees, housing, and food for the direct cost, personal and miscellaneous, transportation, and loan fees for the indirect cost. Their total costs are, of course, higher than a resident Oklahoma student here. But a good thing about that too is that our non-resident tuition waivers, our NRTWs, are actually also higher than for resident students to kind of help offset those tuition costs. So we can see on here, student had a very similar loan setup here, qualified for $5,500 in loans, has that Distinguished Scholar NRTW and the Pell Grant, and then total aid, gift, and self-help is $23,045. And then the math is broken down for them too there, both total cost of attendance minus aid eligibility and direct cost of attendance minus aid eligibility. There is a payment plan that students can opt into at OU. Essentially, it takes the bursar bill every semester and breaks it up into 4 payments: August, September, October, November, January, February, March, and April. There's a summer payment plan as well, half due in June, half due in July. Students don't have to opt into this payment plan. All students are automatically on it if they choose to use it. If there's any questions that a student has about a payment plan, how to pay, contacting the SFC, the Student Financial Center, is going to be their best bet for that. So a few resources then that we have when students are on campus, they have all of their aid package, they have their offer, they're looking at maybe how to afford school, they have all these options. A few resources that we do have for students here at OU. One is a financial education class they can actually take for class credit. It's called 9 Things Every College Student Should Know About Money. Great school or great class that gets a lot of really good reviews from students on how helpful it is. A lot of real world application there. And again, if they take this class, they can get 2 hours of credit. So they're actually earning progress toward their degree for taking a class. This is offered in the winter intersession. So maybe if a student is looking to get to full-time hours during the fall, this can count toward that as well. The Financial Success Plan is a really great tool that students can use. It's sort of like a live interactive version of that financial aid notification letter that we looked at. It's an online tool that students can use in helping make a plan for how to pay for college. And they can contribute if they know they have some family contribution coming or outside scholarships that aren't showing up yet. They can type that in. It can be adjusted on the back end if a staff member is working with the student to kind of help figure out their plan. And it updates in real time as new awards, new scholarships, new information comes in. So it's a really great tool for students who are making a plan and looking to plan out their first year here financially. One of the really great tools on campus as well that kind of pairs along with the Financial Success Plan is the Money Coach program. Money coaches are essentially financial aid advisors, financial aid counselors here on campus who can help prepare students for the financial impact of a college education after they've been admitted and even after they graduate as well. So they not only talk with students about their cost of attendance, their aid package, ways to cover the gap, but we can do financial planning, coaching, financial literacy, through workshops, through one-on-one meetings, through really a lot of great ways that they get in front of students. They do meet with students individually, and a student can contact the Money Coach office by phone or by email to set up an appointment with a money coach. And then the Student Financial Center is I believe the final resource here. They're a little bit different from the money coaches in that they really are the process to the money coach's planning. So once a student is planned with a money coach, if they have questions about missing documents, about charges in their bursar bill, things like that, they can go see the Student Financial Center. They're walk-in based, whereas Money Coach are appointment based. So no appointment is necessary for a student to go see the Student Financial Center. The address is listed on the website. They have a phone number and an email as well. And then who to contact. This is really great for starting places, where to begin, different points of the process. Admissions counselors are a really great way to start the process. They're going to be able to hand students off to who's going to be able to best help them in their situation. They do know questions about incoming freshman scholarships, understanding that fan letter. So that would be a great place to start if a student is confused about where to start. If a student is looking to build a plan, not sure how they're going to afford school maybe, or what their options are, that would be when a student might want to contact a money coach, either on the phone or by email, to set up an appointment to talk over that financial plan after they have a FAFSA on file, which is a really great way for a money coach to know sort of what the situation is. And then again, Student Financial Center, if the student has questions about pieces of the FAFSA, missing documents for that financial aid verification, billing questions, payment plan, bursar installment, all those things, more Student Financial Center. All right, that is the end of this presentation. I hope it was helpful. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out anytime to the Office of Admissions and Recruitment. They can get you set up with where you need to go. But thank you again so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.